What's a story where the bad guys are actually, completely, 100% right, to the point where it's weird the story keeps calling them the bad guys? Iceman in Top Gun. I used to work in naval aviation and he was totally right, Maverick was dangerous and unreliable. Edit, I really wasn't expecting this comment to blow up. I fully understand the meaning of bad guy, but in this instance I took it to mean anything from antagonist, villain, foil, or adversary, but this is Reddit and people are super pedantic and literal. My role was as a naval flight surgeon, so besides being my squadron's doctor I flew in the backseat with them, sat on mishap investigation boards, like the one depicted in the movie, and generally helped determine fitness for flight duty. Maverick wouldn't have lasted long with the antics he pulled and his personality IRL, but where is the fun and drama in that? Mr. Wilson. I was a tween when the movie came out. I was infuriated when Martha had to go make sandwiches when the steaks got paint all over them. Dennis. Jack and the Beanstalk. Some finds the giant's house and starts taking all his best stuff. That weird episode of Friends where Phoebe is convinced her dead mother is reincarnated as a cat so she tries to steal it from its owners and Ross is presented as the bad guy for pointing out how ridiculous this is. Every single Donald Duck cartoon. Dude usually just wants to chill out without being bothered and there's always someone bothering him and then he gets blamed for standing up for his own needs. The older I get, the more I empathize with Donald Duck. Red Foreman was right, Eric and his friends were all that need a boot in the entire season of Inhumans. Maximus is right is attempting to free slaves. But the show is telling us to cheer for Black Bolt and the royal family. Police Academy. They let a bunch of violent, unstable, dishonest deadbeats into the police force, and the chief of police was supposed to be okay with that? He was doing the public a favor by trying to out the worst ones. Most heist movies. Oh, he's doing it to afford medicine for his sick child. Okay, but he just killed 14 security guards, none of whom will be going home to their families now. Any romcom where the main character cheats on their partner with the new love interest that they end up with. This is a wild pull lol, but High School Musical. I'd be pissed if I worked my off for years to get the lead in a musical only for them to give it to someone else who didn't technically attend the auditions. Peter Rabbit. He was a thief, a glutton, a trespasser, a burglar. A naughty little rabbit. Meanwhile, Mr. McGregor only wanted to produce something of value and feed his family. Law-abiding citizen does it well from both characters' perspective. That guy in Bee Movie Mrs Doubtfire because Pierce Brosnan was really nice and was a lonely middle-aged man who wanted a family, but Mrs Doubtfire was so mean to him and even tried to him with pepper knowing he was allergic. Answer by u/invaders from a similar thread some years ago, Megatron. The Decepticons were formed due to political corruption and a completely broken caste system. Megatron and the original Decepticons, Shockwave and Soundwave, were essentially born into the lowest caste on Cybertron, the field workers/miners. They were born into conditions where their only way to stay alive and not be murdered in the middle of the night was to fight in the gladiator pits, where it was or be killed. The rest of the Cybertronians, Transformers, were split into a middle caste and the rich caste. The middle caste were the basic workers, like construction workers, archivers, other low-quality, tedious lives that they had no way out of. The rich caste controlled the entire government on Cybertron. These were the Primes. They share the title with Optimus Prime, but he was not one of them. They kept the lower classes underfoot with no way of advancing their civilization whatsoever. The middle class was well off, for the most part, but the low caste, that Megatron was in, was disregarded completely, treated like trash. So then this gladiator named Megatron starts inspiring all those lower caste workers and telling them that they don't have to live this way. Megatron is the first person who gains traction, and with the help of an archiver in the middle caste named Optimus, not yet a prime, begins to spread his ideas of freedom and being able to choose your life and what to do. At this point, the Decepticons are becoming a major threat to the higher caste. Rogue terrorist Decepticons begin performing terrorist attacks on various parts of Cybertron. Even things like amusement parks, because yes, Transformers had those, and Megatron realizes just how much power that he has. Megatron and Optimus are given a hearing below the High Council to discuss fixing their society, because at this point Megatron and Optimus are the head of the, mostly, peaceful revolution. The Council does not think that Megatron has had any desire to cause destruction, just that his followers were becoming out of control. It was becoming a major issue, so it had to be addressed. At this hearing, the High Council of Primes addresses the clerk named Optimus for his efforts in trying to improve their society, and offer him the rank of Prime. He accepts, realizing that they may be able to fix their society without a full revolution. Megatron becomes enraged. His closest friend betrays him to join the very system he hated. And he absolutely loses it there. He signals his followers, who were among the audience in the chamber, at this point the uprising had been spreading throughout the whole planet, to bring down the building. Megatron, who had gone nearly power mad, swears to Optimus for betraying their ideals and friendship. The building collapses, killing most of the Primes. Optimus and a few others escape. Optimus Prime becomes the leader of the reforming society, meanwhile the Decepticons gain more and more power. Thus begins the power struggle between those who want to peacefully reform, Autobots, and those who want to scrap the entire system, killing anyone who opposes, Decepticons. The conflict continues until Cybertron is finally bled dry and they must leave. The devastated remainder of their society, the Autobots, flee from the dying planet, but Megatron gives chase. They eventually wind up on Earth. Megatron was never evil. He felt rage because of the injustice of watching his kin die in the gladiator pits, and his closest friend betraying everything they had worked for and all of their ideals. He was eventually driven mad by power, brainwashing his loyal followers who believed what they were doing was right the whole time. Yes, Transformers has very deep lore. A shame that Bay doesn't try to include this rich lore and history that the series has. Also, this is what happens before G1, the 80s cartoon, if you're wondering. Cabin in the Woods. Eldritch horrors will everything if occasionally some people aren't sacrificed to some silly ghosts or whatever. Hades in mythology. Most of the time seen as the bad guy because he rules over the underworld, but he was sent there and he's just doing his job, maintain the souls inside, deliver punish when needed etc. And Zeus is a horrible guy. Hades is one of the most mild gods in there. Fenrir/Fenris from the Norse mythology. 1 taken from his home. 2 everyone was afraid of him even though he did nothing. 3 betrayed. 4 chained. 5 sword stuck in his open mouth, preventing him from closing it. 6 laughed. 7 imprisoned for many years. Tell me anyone who would not become crazy after something like this. He was also clever enough to know of the trap and very likely wouldn't dare to fight Odin, being aware of the consequences. Ironic is that we have nations doing worse for less. Little Mermaid. It's my favorite Disney movie, but King Triton was not wrong to not want his teenage daughter shacking up with an adult man. Edit. Since I can't respond to every post making the assertion King Triton was not the villain BC Ursula was the villain, there can be more than one villain. There can also be varying levels of antagonism. Ursula was very obviously the primary villain in TLM. However, this question asked us to identify a character that was essentially painted in a bad light to make the viewer feel a certain way about them when, in reality, that character was not as bad as the writing tried to make it seem. In my opinion, King Triton fits that description. As an adult I understand his concerns, but as a child he came across as mean, overbearing, and as one of the bad guys trying to stop true love. A 16-year-old wanted to run off and get married, and to add insult to injury she had to make permanent physical changes to her body. You'll have to forgive me if I empathize with King Triton more so now that I'm not a kid. Katherine Heigl's character in Knocked Up. When I watched it as a teenager I thought she was a frigid who needed to lighten up and let Seth Rogen's character have fun. Now, as an adult in my 30s I'm like wow, that dude did not have his together. I get why she was stressed out. Edit. Please stop with the actually comments. I don't care. Shere Khan just wanted to eat. Peter Pan. The pirates are just grown-up lost boys that he brought to Neverland. They just want to leave and return to their lives. Tom the cat. He was trying to rid of a mouse that frequently stole food and trashed the house. Tom was just doing his job as the cat of the house. The story of Medusa. The Rock. In the end, the general just wanted benefits paid to families. Sharpay and Ryan from High School Musical. Troy and Gabriella didn't respect people's time, efforts, or even each other. And Troy folded the moment he was alone with his friends. They showed up late all the time. Sharpay and Ryan were just kids who knew what they wanted and worked their off for it since birth practically. Far Cry 4, Pagan Min was actually the good guy the entire time. Granted he was an awful person, but best of a bad situation sort of thing. The two leader of the Golden Path, whichever one you side with, ends up turning on you after you deal W Pagan. Whether they're forcing children and women to be slaves or soldiers or just straight executing them, that's what the freedom fight comes to. AJ, the character you play as, is probably the only good person throughout the whole game, and you get the choice to become leader of Golden Path, by killing either Sabal or the chick, I forget her name. But anyways, Pagan was honest to AJ the whole time, if you wait like he tells you at the start of the game. He comes back and you spread the ashes like your mother wanted you to. That's the proper ending of the game, and it takes 15 minutes. You avoid the civil war and being abducted entirely. I never Pagan now, because even though he had Moen killed, he had AJ's best interest at heart. Ruthless leader, but he's better than actual terrorists. The Fomor and Skirim, they were victims. They were snow elves driven underground by the Nords who invaded their homeland, and they tried to be friendly with the dwarves, who then blinded them and turned them into these violent creatures. Then some comes along, invades their cave, shouts fire at them, steals their and kills them. Continuum is a sci-fi show where terrorists travel back in time from the near future to try and change history. The main character gets trapped in the past with them and has to try and prevent them from changing anything. Except the future they are trying to change is one where society is ruled by a corporate congress, humans' rights are basically out the window and things are pretty up. From the get-go you kind of want the bad guys to win. Squidward is not necessarily a bad guy, but as an adult you feel a lot more for him and how annoying SpongeBob would be to have as a neighbor/co-worker. I know David from Shaun of the Dead wasn't really a villain per se, but he was completely right about Shaun's plan going to, which caused his, Diane's, and Ed's deaths. The bad guys in Bravely Default try to stop the four protagonists from completing their goal pretty much from the start of the game. At around 2/3 to 3/4 into the game, it turns out that they were trying to stop them, because the protagonists had been tricked by an ally into actually doing the bad thing. So not only were the bad guys trying to actually save the world, the protagonists were actually the ones that almost ended the world in the first place. Sid from Toy Story. How the hell was he supposed to know that toys are secretly alive and can feel things? They toys never told him this or gave any indication that he was doing anything wrong, and the moment he becomes aware of it, he's horrified by it, and presumably never hurts a toy again. What's more, he's not purely destructive. His destruction is creative. He performs play surgeries on the toys and rebuilds them once he's torn them apart. I understand how it might seem macabre, but this kid might have ended up being a mechanic or surgeon someday if the toys hadn't scarred him for life. Edit. A few people have noticed he's kind of mean to his little sister, but that feels pretty normal to me for a 10-year-old boy. And we know he has a pet dog that he's considerate towards. Remember how he brings Scud home the little Pizza Planet squeaky toy? So I really do think that Sid is, deep down, a creative and compassionate child from a troubled home who did absolutely nothing wrong and was unfairly cast as the villain despite acting the way a normal 10-year-old acts. Incidentally, Scud, the dog, is also completely unfairly cast as a villain. Scud is a perfectly good dog to the humans in the family, and he chases the toys around because they're literally toys and he's a dog. They flip this around in Mistborn. Edit. See how I put the title of the story I'm including spoilers for in the first paragraph, then the second paragraph starts recapping the events of the series in a way that is obviously going to contain spoilers? Maybe take that as a cue to stop reading here if you don't want spoilers, rather than sending me a nasty gram. In Mistborn, there's like a Darth Vader style supervillain ruling the world in a cruel manner. The first book is the good guys fighting him and killing him. Then the next two books are them realizing that there was this magical evil force that the bad guy had defeated a long time before the events of the book and had been actively preventing from returning. When the good guys killed the bad guy, they freed the evil force and things got a whole lot worse than they had been. As the series progresses, the original bad guy is never really redeemed. He was a vicious and cruel ruler, but they realize what he had achieved in defeating the evil force, as well as preparing supplies and other things to help fight the evil force if it ever got released again. Any documentary about card counting told from the casino's perspective. Card counters are made to be the bad guys in these documentaries even though we really aren't doing anything wrong. Casinos are inherently morally corrupt and terrible for communities. They use several tactics to make it impossible for the average person to realize how much money they are actually spending. And card counting isn't even cheating. It's not like how the movies make it out to be. Real card counting is simply looking at the cards as they come out of the shoe. There's no trick. It's just looking at the cards and using a memorization system to keep track of everything. For an apt comparison, imagine being banned from chess tournaments for using your head too much. That's what card counters get banned for. Thinking too hard. And casinos make us out to be the bad guy for being above average at one casino game. Insane how we are the bad guys when in reality, they make hundreds of thousands by getting patrons enough to the point that they blow all their savings. Casinos. King Triton. He was trying to wrangle in his 16-year-old who, as the youngest tend to do, had zero desire to listen to her dad. On that note, Ursula also understood how dumb Ariel was being for wanting to give up her voice for a dude, so she sang her an entire song about it and catfished the prince to show Ariel his true colors. Edit, guys, it's a fairytale. Chill. It's not that serious. Also, per almost every Disney movie or Disney Channel original movie, any character keeping the protagonist from achieving their dreams and/or happiness is a villain, which, according to Merriam-Webster, is any character opposing the hero. Also, keeping in mind who the target audience is, children, specifically little girls, King Triton is most definitely not considered a good guy for keeping his daughter from true love.